Hello, grade 8. Today we're going to be talking about chapter 10, lesson 1, the physical geography of East Africa. As you can see here in front of you, the map of East Africa. These are the countries of East Africa. We have here to the north Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya. Here we have Rwanda and Burundi, Tanzania in the middle, Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Comoros, and Madagascar. The ecosystem of East Africa is very diverse. The most important physical feature of East Africa is the Great Rift Valley. It is the most unusual one. The Great Rift Valley started forming 20 million years ago, when tectonic plates started to tear from one another. So Africa was once connected to the Arabian Peninsula. As the two rifted apart or separated from one another, the land in between sank and was filled by the Red Sea. Eventually, all of East Africa will separate from the rest of Africa, and the Red Sea will fill the rift. So if it started as one part, Africa was only one part which was connected to the Arabian Peninsula. Then what happens to the tectonic plates? They started to tear from one another, to get separate from one another. So they have formed two rifts which are apart. These two rifts, in between of them, sank and there was filled by the Red Sea. Let's talk about the system of the Great Rift. About 4,000 miles long and from 30 to 40 miles wide. We have the eastern branches and we have the western branches of the rift. Eastern branches started in Southwest Asia and runs through the Dankel Plain in Ethiopia, then takes the form of valleys as it extends in Tanzania and Kenya. But the western branch stretches from Lake Malawi in the south through Uganda in the north. Much volcanic and seismic activity has occurred along the branches of the Great Rift Valley. The largest volcanoes are located on the eastern rift, include the Kilimanjaro between Kenya and Tanzania. Actually, the Kilimanjaro is the tallest mountain in Africa, and it is very famous by its summit. It is covered with snow, even though it is near the equator. So what makes the Great Rift system very special that much of it has volcanic and seismic activity. It happened all over the branches of the Great Rift Valley. They are located, much of them are located on the eastern rift, especially that they include the Kilimanjaro between Kenya and Tanzania. What we need to know about the Kilimanjaro is the tallest mountain in Africa, and its summit is covered with the snow, although it is near the equator. Other physical features, let's talk about country by country. Let's start by Sudan. It is the home for vast plains and plateaus. In the north, we have the terrain, which is desert. In Somalia, we have to the east, also extremely dry. It is made up of largely savanna and semi-desert. Djibouti to the north has rugged mountains and desert. South of Sudan, the Rwenzori Mountains, which divide Uganda from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And at the end, we have in Rwanda a small landlock, which known as the Land of Thousand Hills. So we have a diverse nature or a variety of physical features all over East Africa. In between deserts, dry, we have savanna, we have the rugged mountains, we also have the Rwenzori Mountains, which divide Uganda from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And at the end, we have Rwanda, which is the Land of Thousand Hills. Let's talk about the bodies of water. The most important body of water is the River Nile, which is the world's longest Nile in the world. We've said before in North Africa that the River Nile is the longest one. And we have talked about the Nile Basin, which includes parts of many countries in East Africa. These countries are Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and the Sudan. Also, we have talked about the two sets of headwater which the Nile come from, which are the Blue Nile and the White Nile. The Blue Nile begins in Ethiopia, and the White Nile begins in the Lake Victoria, then passes through swampy wetlands in central Sudan. This huge area is called the Sud. So the Sud is a huge area, consists of swampy wetlands in central Sudan. The two branches of the Nile meet in Khartoum, then the Nile flows north to the Mediterranean Sea. Many lakes are located also near the Great Rift Valley. The largest lake is Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria has a special nature because it is shallow, but it contains more than 200 species of fish. Also, we have Lake Tanganyika, which is the longest freshwater lake in the world. And we have the second deepest lake is Lake Malawi. So if you are talking about major lakes of Africa and their bordering countries, we have the Lake Victoria. It is bordered by Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. We have Lake Tanganyika, which is bordered by Tanzania, Democratic Republic of Congo. We have the Lake Malawi, which is bordered by Tanzania, Malawi, and Mozambique. Let's talk about the climate of East Africa. Although we have diverse natural physical features, also we have diverse in climate. In Sudan, Djibouti, and Somalia, we have high temperature much of the year. In Kilimanjaro and the Rwenzori range has glaciers, but they are melting now due to the climate change and global warming. We have also on the highland of Kenya and Uganda, spring-like climate. We have near the equator, seasonal rainfall, wet seasons, and dry seasons. And at the end, we have on the tropical grassland of Kenya, 2 rainy seasons. We have the long rains from April and May, short rains in October and November, and the periods in between have dry seasons with little or no rain at all. So as you can see, we have here the variety of climate and also in temperature. In between high temperature, places with glaciers, spring climate, wet and dry seasons, and rainy seasons. We have a very huge problem in East Africa which is called desertification. Desertification is the process by which agriculture land turns into deserts. When did it happen? It happens or it occurs when long periods of drought and unwise land destroy vegetation. Desertification has affected much of Sahel. It lies between the Sahara and the countries of South, such as Sudan and South Sudan. It is a very huge problem because it destroys the agricultural land and it turns it into desert. Let's talk about the natural resources in East Africa. We have variety also of natural resources. As you can see here, in Kenya and Tanzania and Uganda, we have gold deposits. In Tanzania, we have gemstones such as sapphires and diamonds. Rwanda, we have tin deposits. Lake Assal on Djibouti, we have the largest salt reserve. In Ethiopia and Uganda, we have the lumber. Also, we have plenty of energy resources. In Tanzania, we have the coal. In Uganda, we have petroleum. Also, we have the hydroelectric power or electricity produced from falling water in Sudan. It is still developed. It's not working fully now, but in Kenya and Tanzania, it actually works. We have the geothermal energy, which comes from the heat inside the earth, such as hot springs and steams. It provides 30% of Kenya's energy. Major cities use much of this energy actually. East Africa also is a land of wildlife. They are very important tourist resources. We have many national parks, which are the best known reserves in Kenya and Tanzania. These parks are home for lions, leopards, and cheetahs, giraffes, zebras, elephants, and dozens of species. Every year, the world witnessed the great migration of 1 million animals which travel hundreds of miles in search of fresh grazing land. This is the end of the physical feature of East Africa. Thank you.